We all love giving our dog a treat or two, either as a tasty reward for being good or during training. But commercial treats can either be super expensive or full of ingredients that you can't even pronounce and you don't know what's in them. Your dog is going to absolutely love the simple treats that we'll be making today, and with only a handful of ingredients you can rest assured that there's no additives or extras. And keep watching to the end as I'll discuss how many calories each treat has and the best size to cut them as well. Hi, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex from ourpetshealth.com, where my aim is to help you understand your pet, optimize their health so that your dog can live the healthy and happy life that you want for them. And the big thing to say at the beginning from a veterinary point of view is that we do need to be a little bit careful with the number of treats that we're giving our dog, because obesity, being overweight, is a huge problem and it has a massive impact on your dog's health. So as well as giving these treats, which we should give in moderation, also just consider showing your dog some extra attention, playing a game with them, taking them for a walk a couple of times a day, because your dog really also just wants that interaction. That's just as much a reward for them as it is for their health, and your dog will just love spending more time with you. Okay, so the supplies you need for these simple dog treats are 1 cup of wholemeal flour. Now you can use something like coconut flour if you prefer a grain-free option. You just might need to add a little bit more water and egg just to make it less crumbly and stick together. But 1 cup of wholemeal flour, you're going to need 2 eggs, you're going to need about 300 grams of fish. So in this case I've got tuna, but you could use salmon, sardines, you could also use something like chicken as well. And I'll make sure I'll put the metric and imperial measurements down in the description as well. And then an optional extra ingredient, if you like, that can just add that little bit of extra flavour and appeal for your dog is cheese. Now this is extra, it's not required for the recipe, and you might want to be a little bit careful if you are using these and your dog is overweight, because cheese does have a lot of calories, and also if your dog is suffering from something like pancreatitis, where cheese may actually trigger that. So to start with, we're just going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 180 degrees Celsius, and then we're simply going to take our fish, pop that in the bowl, and then we're going to add our eggs. Going to mix those up together, just mix them nicely. Now you can mix the eggs, whisk the eggs up before, but we're just going to mix that all in together so that that's all well mixed, and it will help also just break up that tuna, those fish chunks, into slightly smaller bits. And then it's as simple as taking our cup of wholemeal flour, adding that in, and then just giving that a really good mix. Now you want to really work that in, making sure that you're getting all of that flour. It's pretty smelly, this recipe, so if you're not a big fan of tuna or fish in general, and holding your breath is going to be hard, but like I say, you can use chicken as another option. Really mixed in well. So that tuna that I used as well was in spring water, so it wasn't in the oil, it's in spring water, and you want to keep all of that water to add to that flour, which makes it nice and moist. So perfect. So once that's well mixed in, at this point you'd really be ready to go, but I'm going to add cheese just to give that extra appeal. Now I've just got some cheddar cheese. It's actually a mild cheddar cheese because my children aren't too keen on the strong stuff, but actually if you have a really strong, mature, stinky cheese, then that's going to be more appealing for your dog. So yeah, use whatever you've got in the fridge, but if you do have a smellier cheese, then that's just going to increase the appeal and the treat value, if you like, for your dog. And if you're using that for training, then the higher the appeal, the higher the value of that treat, the better. Okay, so once that's all mixed in, the next step is simply to get a baking tray and simply tip the mixture onto the baking tray. Whoops. Now you could just grease the baking tray as well, but I've just got a piece of grease-proof paper to stop it sticking. So once that's on the baking tray, you can literally just spread it out. Now you want it to be pretty thin, maybe a centimetre or so thick, half an inch or so, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to bake it like this, and then we'll be cutting it into treat-sized portions once it's baked. There we go, so it's as easy as that. Once it's all laid out, then it's simply a case of popping it into that preheated oven. And then depending on whether you've got a fan assisted oven or not, it's going to take about 40 minutes or so for those treats to bake. So there we go, so that looks like it's cooked really nicely. What I'm going to do is just transfer that onto a chopping board, and then we're going to start chopping these treats. I'm also just going to take the baking paper off. And so what we really want to be thinking about when we're chopping these treats and using a nice sharp knife, if you've actually got a pizza cutter, that is better. It does make it easier to chop them up. I don't have a pizza cutter though. The size you want to be chopping them to is, they're about 1 centimetre wide here, and you probably want them to be square or rectangular, so maybe about the size of half of your thumbnail. So you don't want them to be too big. You just want, with treats, you want to use them as a small reward, and because the temptation is to give more than one, or to give multiple during a training session. And like I say, the last thing we want to be doing is overdoing these treats. Fantastic, so that's the treats all cut up into small squares. Now you could leave it like this, which is absolutely fine, and you've got a really nice soft treat. Now actually soft treats are more valuable to a dog. They have a higher treat value than really crunchy treats. So you might want to keep them like this. If though you find that they're a little bit soft, or you prefer to use a harder biscuit, which will keep a little bit better as well, what I would suggest you do is actually, I've left the oven on, and I'm going to transfer these back onto the baking tray. There goes some everywhere. I'm sure more cats will love cleaning up these as well, because tuna and cheese is also loved by cats. But we're going to put these back on the baking tray, just like that. And then I'm going to put them back into the oven for another 5 minutes to crisp up. Of course, now if you prefer them even more crunchy, then just leave them in for a little bit longer. You could also turn down the heat of that oven. So it's on 350 or 180. You could turn that down to 140, which is just going to help dry out the inside as well without kind of really cooking the outside. So I'm just going to tip that back onto the chopping board. Now you might find at this stage as well that there's a few that are a little bit bigger, so you can always just break those. They're going to break a little bit more easily now that they're a bit drier. And the next step is just to separate them into portions that you're going to use. So you're probably going to want to portion them out. So I think from this batch maybe into 4 different bits. You'll get through those in a week. And so for each portion, you can leave one in the fridge, and then you can actually freeze the others, and they're going to keep absolutely fine like that. Just make sure that you defrost them properly, and actually that they're up to room temperature, because if they're warmer, again, they're going to be more appealing for your dog. Now, as for calorie content, so the whole batch of this is about 1,000 calories if you're adding 50 grams of cheddar. If you're not adding the cheddar, then it's about 800 calories. I've got about 200 treats here. Now you might be able to get more, especially if you're using a pizza cutter. And if anything, these are a little bit too big. So these would be good for a big dog, but for a small dog, you definitely want about half that. But even at this size, it's going to mean that there's about 4 to 5 calories per treat, which isn't huge as long as you're not overdoing it. Now, if you want to learn more about feeding your dog using food puzzles and brain games and other treats, make sure you check out the playlist that's linked on the screen now. And until next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is Our Pets Health, because they're family. And you know what? I think they actually taste pretty good as well.